Hello, everyone. My name is Vito Quaglia, and this is another episode of A Matter of Principle. This is a special Football Friday episode, and once again, we have our favorite guest, Coach Jack Baranski, on with us, and we're going to talk a little bit about where we are right now in high school football. It's nearing the halfway point, week 5 games coming up, and we just want to talk a little bit about maybe some of the teams and how they're going so far, maybe some surprises, some traditional powerhouses maybe aren't what they used to be, or maybe they're just on their way to be what they traditionally have been. So without further ado, let's welcome Coach Baranski to the podcast. Hey, Coach, how are you?
Hey, thanks for having me, Vito. Glad to be back.
Excellent. Well, first off, as somebody who coached, usually at this point in the season, you have 4 games under your belt, you're going into the 5th grade game. Do you think these head coaches out there know what they have, or do you think there's some questions still have to be answered?
It's real interesting. It's a great question. People make their greatest growth between weeks 1 and 2, and then you start getting to midseason, and you kind of have a feel for who you are. But there's some uniqueness this year in the strength of schedule. So, take Dallas, for instance. They opened up with a very front-heavy schedule, and if they're lacking confidence, that's a young team Coach Manello has out there. And, confidence can mean a lot to a young football team. And it doesn't seem like they're shaken. They bounced back last week with a nice win over Wilkes-Barre. But their schedule, for all intents and purposes, seems to ease up here down this stretch. And you can't be shocked. Dallas doesn't go on a great run. And some other people are still searching for who they are. I think some of the top dogs have sorted out. But who's the middle of the pack? And there's some big games coming up over the next couple of weeks. They're going to really align where people are.
Is there anybody right now that is a surprise to you? Is there anybody that stands out, maybe a team that hasn't been successful that is, or a team that you expected more from and they're on the snide a little bit? Anything out there yet?
Well, I hate to view it from the snide part of things, but Hazleton, lost a ton of kids, and, they're playing competitive football up there right now. Low scoring games. I know Coach Bookman is an offensive-minded head football coach and would prefer to have high-scoring games. But as of right now, they've let up 78 points in the first 4 games, and they've scored 53. So they're playing these low-scoring grinders and hanging around. And, hats off to him with that young football team. I'd say Hazleton right now in Division I, still alive right in the middle of it.
And the thing about Hazleton, as we all know, there's so many, kids up there that you can draw from, but trying to get, it's kind of a transient community more so than a place where, the kids have been there K through 12. So trying to get some kids maybe to come out for football, you might see some guys move into the district that look athletic, and you're always trying to get some more numbers. And then the fact that, trying to get kids to gel together. Hazleton's always been one of those anomalies where if they can just get it rolling, to establish a tradition, they might be, it's like somebody's going to wake the sleeping giant up there because of how many athletes they can draw from.
Yeah, there's no doubt. It's a big school. They graduate a ton of kids. Last check, they were top 5 in the state in population. But like you said, you have a transient population, and you might see a good-looking kid in the hallway. You talk to him about coming out. He may never have put a helmet on before. And that's a lot of work to do, as opposed to a kid that came up through the mini football program to junior high program, understands the system, some of the basic techniques and fundamentals. And, it's a much better build that way, a much easier build.
Yeah. And I think, you look at, you contrast that, humongous school district with a district that's also pretty darn big, but maybe a little bit smaller than years past, Delaware Valley. I was there for a little bit. My younger brother is a coach on that staff with Coach Olsemer. And I think that the reason that that's a bedroom community of New York and New Jersey. There's a lot of transient things going on up there, people moving around. But when you have the consistency of the same staff, for 2 decades, Coach Olsemer's been there since 99, and the majority of his assistants have been there as well, if not guys who came through the program. So when you have the same voices, the same mindset, the same kind of philosophy and tradition there, I think it's easier to deal with maybe the student athletes that come and go a little bit, so I think Del Val has an advantage. Now, right now, people might look at their record. Now, I know you're more of a Wyoming Valley Conference guy, but, having my brother up there and being in the Lackawanna Conference right now, working, they're not off to a start that you'd want to be at. They just lost a tough game against Prep, who's a powerhouse up there. But I think as Del Val gets into their regular league schedule, things will even up for them a little bit, and you'll probably see them, knocking on the door at some postseason accolades. So don't sleep on Del Val.
Oh, not under no circumstances. That's been over the last couple of years. It seems like Coach Olsemer likes to open up with some really tough competition. Set the Texas team, win, lose, or draw. They're better for it come week 5, 6. And now they're going to settle into a conference schedule here, and they're going to be just fine. And you're exactly right with the longevity of that staff. I was lucky enough in my career through the years here to coach in some really big games against Delaware Valley, in playoff games and championship type regular season games with the huge crowds. And it was the same guys. And we had some consistency here at Valley West in the Keating era too. And we as staffs, we kind of got to know each other. And you're right, that consistent voice, you get a new player in the system, that player's getting the same message from all the coaches that are on the same page. And that means a lot. And they do a great job.
And I think you say consistency helps, with a shot in the arm and kind of building confidence with guys who can kind of see things, as they come into the system, they see the records, the success of the wins and losses and, kind of try to fit into there. But also when there's some new blood, some new coaches, younger coaches, that also inject some enthusiasm. And Pittston Area is a place that has a brand new head coach and Joe DeLuca. They had a couple of rough goes the first couple of weeks, but last couple of weeks, they turned things around a little bit. And I know they have some players there. What do you think about Pittston Area so far?
Well, I'll tell you what, I got to see them up and close and personal last week, and I'm very impressed with the job that Coach DeLuca is doing. And he's assembled a really nice staff up there. Lenny Baczynski, Dwayne Downing, he has his sons, Johnny and Joey, are on the staff. I mean, you're talking about a real quality coaching staff there. And it really appears as if they're on the build. I liked what they were doing offensively. They looked fundamentally sound defensively. And, they have some young guys in some key spots right now. But I'll tell you what, the Lepresto kid is as talented as I've seen this year in some limited game. This kid's explosive, and they do a nice job getting them the ball. They're creative. And again, a veteran coaching staff. They've been around. They're patient. They're building. And hats off to Coach DeLuca and the job that he's done up there.
Yeah, no, they're doing a really nice job. And I think if they get some things right, I think, you might have some early season jitters when you're kind of doing things for the first time. But when you have the athletes they have, it's a little bit easier. Lepresto was outstanding. Only a sophomore. Last year he came on like gangbusters as a freshman, and their quarterback is a kid who's a tremendous athlete. Matt Walter, who I believe just came out last year, first time playing football, was a receiver and a D-back, and then, slid into the QB role. But again, just a tremendous athlete and can get things going. I know that I believe Coach Ken White is on that staff. Did you say that he's a Wilkes-Barre alum?
That's right. I saw Coach White. Yes, sir. Yes. Another veteran guy's been around a long, Myers, Wilkes-Barre Area, Coughlin. He's been in a lot of places, a lot of stops. And to speak to the young man, Walter, they're doing a lot of straight Q run game with him right now. And you can see he's not a quarterback running the ball. He's an athlete playing quarterback. And his delivery was pretty good. He missed on a couple. They had some big plays early that he missed on, but they were good looking balls. And, he runs the ball nicely. And that's a big advantage when you can run your quarterback.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, and anytime, because the defense has to account for that person, right? And a lot of times if you have those guys, especially coming out of the 7-on-7s where, some people just stand on a spot and zing it around that, like a Tom Brady kind of thing. If they're not going to be a running threat, defensively, you scheme completely different. But if you have a kid over there that's really just almost another running back who could throw the ball, then you really got to prepare a whole lot differently. I mean, as a defense coordinator for so long, you definitely must agree with that.
Absolutely. That's a headache when you have a kid that's going to run around, create. There's designed Q run game. The biggest advantage for an offense in a Q run game is this. If a quarterback turns around and hands the ball off to a tailback and carries out a good fake, you have 9 blockers, a ball carrier, and a person who's trying to hold people's eyes with a fake. If you run the quarterback, it's just a numbers game. Now you have 10 blockers and a ball carrier. You're +1 in the blocking game. And like you said, from a defensive standpoint, when you're scheming this out, you better pound in your rush lanes. If people are going to leave rush lanes and somebody's going to take advantage of them and start ripping off 10, 15, 20-yard runs, it's a headache. It's a major, major headache. So, yeah, they got a little something going there with Mr. Walter. I like what's going on.
Well, and to jump across the river to their rival, Pittston Area's rival, Wyoming Area, that's another place very, very similar to a Delaware Valley that's had the same coaches around for decades, same philosophies and things like that. What do you see with the Warriors?
Well, I got to see them in person week one up at Crestwood. I, I'm going to talk about a couple of their athletes here quickly, but I was very impressed with the physicality of their offensive and defensive line. I thought that they were very physical because I thought Crestwood was pretty physical too, and they kind of negated each other in week one. But WA has playmakers. Make no mistake about it. Otway Kellum, special teams, receiving, running the ball. The kid he went for over 300 against the Dallas team. You do that against any Dallas team, you know you're doing something. So Lidge Kellum. I'm sorry, I have the wrong. Lidge Kellum at Wyoming Area. I apologize. Otway Kellum's at Hanover. Lidge Kellum having a big year, and the young receiver Kopechny. Some people ease into conference play. He comes out and goes for over 150 yards receiving in his first start ever. He welcomed himself to the league. He didn't wait for an introduction. He just went and did it. And, good for him. DeLuca at quarterback, good athlete. He week one, he looked a little rusty up at Crestwood, but it looks like he's starting to settle in and get the ball where it needs to be. As far as Division II Wyoming Valley Conference, it's Wyoming Area, and then it appears like it's everybody else sorting out for your other spots. Yeah, they're clearly headed above everyone else, and possibly, bar none, Division I or II, possibly the best team in the conference.
Well, and it all starts up front for those of us who, played in the trenches. As much as the line doesn't get the accolades in the paper, guys who coach understand that. And Coach Fonte, a long time, line coach there, does a great job. And what I like most about, Wyoming Area is those coaches, they'll get an average or a sub-average kid maybe to be really good. Anybody can get a really good athlete and make them themselves, right? Just let them go play. But when you truly, you're a teacher / coach, when you could really get your mentality, get the kids to be physical, like you said, but also understand the game, understand, that their technique has to be really good if you're undersized. But they've had a stretch now where they've had some really physical, dominating big guys up front with, maybe the 5'10", 5'11" guys as well who do a real nice job. So I know Coach Fonte, want to give him a little shout out. He does a really nice job with those guys.
Michael deserves that. Michael deserves a nice little shout out.
And Randy does a nice job with, like all the great ones do, build your offensive scheme around the talent you have. If you have a kid who could run around like back in the day with Nick O'Brien and things like that, that was a tailback back there that could sling it. Or if you have, a DeLuca who's more of a quarterback, it doesn't hurt to have a, Kenny Kopechny's little boy out there. Kenny himself was an outstanding receiver. So, you have these athletes littered all over the field. They do a really nice job. And a couple weeks ago I had Coach Maranka on there, and he's, really sitting out in Arizona, retired, but really pleased with, how those guys on that staff have really just kept that tradition rolling. So, hats off to those guys to still, it's almost like when they have a down year, they're 5-5, right? Like they don't really seem like they ever suffer one of those, 1-9, 0-10 kind of things. So they seem like they're rolling again.
Yeah, it looks definitely trending upwards. Like I said, I thought they were a very physical football team in week one. They came out and, with intent, and you're right, again, with the consistency part. Wyoming Area football years ago, coaching against them, everything. I don't want to say tendency wise they're the same, but schematically, defensively, they don't change. They're a 5-2 defense. If you spread them out, you might get them into a forefront. They have a program, and it's been that way for a long time. And here's what we do. And, we're not going to make excuses, and everybody understands it. And I think that there's something really to be said for that.
Well, and it goes back, for the dinosaurs like you and me talking about stuff, when you had, Coach Jackson involved in Coughlin, you know what I mean? And the defensive kind of stuff that came at that you guys did at Coughlin. And then, when Coach Jackson was at Dallas all those years, you know what you're going to get. You're going to get a very fundamentally sound team that was just going to keep doing the same kind of stuff. They weren't going to get into that, offense of the week, defense of the week kind of stuff. They just believe in, this is what we do. And, and we're going to wear you down like Novocaine sometimes when it comes to like some deliberate stuff offensively. But hey, if you can instill that and you get a little bit of some confidence with some wins and you get, you go from 35 to 42 guys to almost 50 guys on your roster, things like that, that's when you get a successful consistency in your program. And I think some of those programs we talked about so far, they have those things.
Yeah, definitely. Just like in education, the scaffolded learning, if you have a basic structure for your program, you could always, as the season goes on, build into it and add in some nuances or maybe take things in a different direction, but not run a different offensive scheme every week, but just have some things. Be so good at what you do within the structure of your program that you're able to add on and have a couple change ups along the way, and then you really got something going.
What about some of these schools? I mean, I haven't seen Berwick live. I've seen, some clips and read some things. I know they're kind of struggling right now. New coach down there, probably new staff, younger guy in Coach Curry. What have you heard anything about the program? Are they starting to make some improvements there? Or are they just having a tough time to start out?
It appears, first of all, Coach Curry, he just taken over, stepping in there. I think he was at Ceilings Grove. He did a short stint at Berwick a couple years ago. I think he was at Ceilings Grove for a year or two. So now he's back to, home, for lack of a better term. And it's going to take him some time to get this together the way that he wants it. But they are playing impressive defense. 103, they're giving them about 25 points a game, but right now they're struggling offensively. They've only scored 24 points. They're only averaging 6 points a game right now. So I know they're going to want to get that going. They're going to have some tough matchups. I know they still have Wyoming Area coming up down the road. They had a couple big games coming up. But I think Coach Curry's going to be looking for growth. Let's keep moving forward. Let's run the ball a little bit better. Let's be a little bit more consistent in our passing game. Let's start putting points on the board. And it's going to take some time. And I think Coach Curry's the right guy for the job down there. And he's going to get it going.
Well, and I hope, like you said, it's going to take time. It isn't the Berwick demographic. It isn't the Berwick community of the 70s and 80s and 90s and early 2000s. It's different now. And for anybody out there who thinks, well, this is, another Curry who he must have all the X's and O genius of his grandfather and things like that. And it's going to take time, and I hope the people down there, the fans and the community and the administration alike, give the young man time to build his program the right way, to have that consistency, that all these other programs we've talked about a little bit so far have. And I think you're right. I think he's the right guy for the job. I think he could do a really nice job of maybe, bringing back a lot of those traditional things. But again, it's not going to be an overnight success. There's going to be growing pains. And I just hope that everybody who has the power down there does the right thing by them.
Yeah, I happen to agree with that. He's a young guy. He's only in his late 20s. I mean, CJ was a quarterback under his grandfather. He was a 2-year starter. He understands the old Coach Curry offense. Then he went on to East Stroudsburg, which is a whole different style of offense, and he finished up at Kings in a playing career. So he's seen some different things, and I'm sure I know that he has the utmost respect for his grandfather, like we all do. And I'm sure he has some elements of that, but I'm sure it's different. He's not just going to run his grandfather's program. He's going to do it his way, as he should. And yeah, patience is the thing. Hopefully, and I know that he's teaching the right things. He's holding the team to high expectations, and that consistency, keep putting that message in, get back in the weight room, and he'll get it going, I believe.
No, definitely. I think that's hopefully, down the road, we could talk about that program, a couple of years down the road and say, hey, I remember when they started off and, he's really got them in the right direction. So, we're all rooting for you, kiddo. So Coach Curry, get after it and keep doing, what you need to do. How about some other programs, in the area where I grew up in the sprawling metropolis of Ashley, Newtown, but Hanover area, the Nanticoke area, they're kind of, going through some growing pains themselves, struggling right now. What do you see out of them?
Well, you have Coach Majeros over at Hanover. They have a nice staff. I haven't seen them play at all this year, but they're another team. When you look at their statistics, they've struggled offensively. So they've scored 40 points on the season. They do have a young playmaker. I misstated him from Wyoming Area earlier. Jonathan Otway-Killam at Hanover Area. Statistically, he's the second leading receiver in Division II in the Wyoming Valley Conference. So they have a playmaker, and I know they have a couple other, and their quarterback statistically is playing pretty well. Last name of Richardson has some statistics throwing the ball, but they've struggled consistently putting points up. And defensively, they've given up way too much right now with 163 in 4 games. They're averaging 40.8 points a game allowed. So they're going to have to get that straightened out. And I've known Coach Majerus a long time. Jay's a great guy and a great football coach. And he again needs time. He patience, let him build a program, stay with it. And I have faith that Coach Majerus, before long, especially with a couple of these young athletes he has, will be making some noise in that division too.
And Nanticoke, unfortunately suffered such a, tremendous loss to that program, that community at the beginning of the year. So I know that they're struggling in not just X's and O's, but really just trying to rally behind, a lot of some, tragic stuff that happened to them.
Sad. I mean, Coach Dennis took over for a long time. Coach Bruza moved into administration. For years, Nanticoke, you knew wing tee, Coach Bruza. You don't see a lot of wing tees anymore, but man, he stuck to it. And it can't be that bad. Southern runs it, and they've been a little successful. So, Coach Bruza did a great job. He stepped into administration. Coach Dennis came down, took on a massive challenge because Nanticoke graduated a ton of kids last year, talented football players. And it was going to be a build no matter what. Young team, some kids never even had played football before, and reading some of the articles, quotes from Coach Bruza. And Coach Dennis was positive all summer. What a great leader for that young team. And to have that happen, wow, I can't even imagine, but hats off to them. Picked up their first win this past week. It's just something to mention. I'm sure that was a celebration from Tunkhannock right straight back to Nanticoke. I'm sure that was a noisy bus, and good for them. They deserved it.
Absolutely. And hopefully, maybe the football season can be a rallying point for them, and kind of lean on each other when you're trying to go through some times of, loss. But it's another life lesson. Like you're going to have situations where we lose people close to us in life, and you have to find, ways to persevere. So luckily, that community, that those guys can kind of rally around each other and hopefully make it just a little bit better as they go forward.
Yeah, more so than the game, lifelong lesson here. Lifelong lesson, adversity. How do you face it? You know that you need people to support you, and that's teammates are there for. And hats off to Coach Bruza, he stepped back in there temporarily just to, hold things together. But he had stated in the paper again last week, this is Coach Dennis's team, and they won. He would not accept even one kudo for it, and that's the kind of stand-up guy he is. And lifelong he played at Nanticoke. Coach Bruza lives and breathes Nanticoke football, and he stepped in there to help hold it together. And they play for the late Coach Dennis right now, and good again. Great win last week. Hopefully that's the start of some. Hopefully they can keep that going and pick up a couple more here.
Now, how about Wilkes-Barre Area? What's going on with the Wolfpack?
Wow, I'll tell you what. Watch week 1 on television. They beat a tremendous District 11 school in Whitehall, who's as consistent in the playoffs, like you can pencil their name in before the season starts every year. Outstanding program down there. They come out, Jake Howe throws for big yards, and they win the football game. Then they go up to Stroudsburg. Again, it was on television, so I happened to watch some of it. They didn't play as well. They faced a little adversity, and things didn't go their way. They gave up some big plays. That rolled into a Valley View team. Again, one of these programs, Valley View, set your watch to it. They're going to show up. They're going to be fundamentally sound. They're going to play physical. And Wilkes-Barre struggled with it. And then Dallas. And so Wilkes-Barre starts out by beating Whitehall, and you think, okay, here we go. We're looking at 8-2, 9-1, and they're sitting 1-3. So who's the real Wilkes-Barre Area? I guess that's yet to be sorted out. And that, this week, week 6, they go up to Hazleton. Week 7, they have Pittston Area. So they have some games coming up. They're going to say, where do we fall in this thing? Are we still at the top of the food chain? Are we more middle of the pack? They have to find their footing. And to speak about the Howe kid, he started as a freshman. started at least 10 games. I forget if they had a playoff. At the very least right now, he has quarterbacked in 24 high school football games. Most people don't play in 24, and he's only a junior. He's a junior that's quarterbacked the team. They have some leadership and stability at that quarterback spot and some playmakers. They're really young. I was talking to Coach Cynthia and Coach Michaels, really young team. They almost have everybody back next year. So they knew that they were going to hit some speed bumps along the way, but they really like this group. And they think if they can get it going the second half of the year, which they should, you're no longer, when you're playing in your sophomore year, midway through the season, you're really not a sophomore anymore. You got to start considering yourself a little bit. You've been around the block. And, late in this year, look out for Wilkes-Barre. And then going into next year, pencil it in now. One of the better teams in the area next year, the Wolfpack.
Well, and I think that's another place where once they hit their stride, I mean, you're talking about kids coming from 3 different areas where there used to be 3 different football programs back in the day. When you played and even before that, you had, the Plains Yankees and the Mini Mohawks and the Heights Packers. You had tremendous youth programs for decades, so there's been a lot of pride in those 3 Wilkes-Barre schools. And now for everybody to be together, I think there's probably just like any place where there's a jointure, there's a feeling out period, trying to see it's everybody coming out that would have, played if they were in the 3, separate high schools, things like that. So there's going to be a little bit of that. But once, like you said, I think that's another place, just like like a Hazleton, a sleeping giant kind of thing. If it comes together and they get a little confidence, look out, because it could be very contagious in what they're doing. But they have tremendous athletes. My brother Nick up at DV, I know when they played in the playoffs, those guys, were not thrilled to see the caliber of athletes across the field. They knew they were going to be matchup problems. They're really athletic. So yeah, they definitely have kids in that program, and I think it's just going to be a matter of time before they're consistently a winner. So, and now just to throw this out there, Coach, to you, and this is something I'm sure probably going to make some people mad who are listening, if people even listen to us, but I had no idea why, the schedule makers don't have Delaware Valley playing the big schools. I mean, they don't play Wilkes-Barre, they don't play Hazleton, they don't play Williamsport. I just don't understand that, those guys up there have to go all over creation in New York to find games when there's quality programs here in and around District 2. So it doesn't make sense to me. And I know as a person who sat on those committees, it's not the easiest thing in the world to get those things to happen, but you can and you should. And District 2 teams should all play each other. And not have to, run around every county and get on the bus for 2 and 3 hours to go play games. Really, hopefully next time around, after this cycle, that they can get that right and make sure that Delaware Valley is playing some more D2 teams. That's just my own personal commercial. Not to, I didn't mean to speak for you if you feel that way or not, but.
No, here's what I always thought as a coach. And a lot of the PIAA in District 2 is about the playoff games. And filling the seats for a playoff game. I think back to the 80s before district playoff games when there was Eastern Conference and you were a Wyoming Valley Conference champion. You played somebody from Lackawanna County. You didn't see each other all year. You don't even have common opponents. And those places would be jammed. So I think there's something to be said about not playing everybody of the same size in the area. So it brings a little intrigue to a playoff game. Who's what? When you show up, if a couple years ago, I don't know, Dallas Valley View. They played in the regular season. I forget who came out on top. In the playoff game, it was just a repeat of what you saw in the regular season. I think sometimes there's some real intrigue if teams did not play each other. And here they are in the playoffs. They had 2 successful seasons. Maybe they had a couple common opponents. I'm not saying that Del Val should have to travel all over the world. I think they like going to Florida to start the year because they've been doing that for a little while.
No, absolutely. But I mean, but the fact that, they're sitting at 5A now. So I don't think they're playing any of the 6-8. I mean, I don't know. So that's what I'm saying. I understand you're not going to play everybody, but the fact that I think they have to have 4 out of their 10 games against non-Northeast PA people. I mean, to me, that's a little bit of a stretch.
Yeah. And that's actually news to me. That's actually news to me because I just know years ago at Valley West when we were playing all the other 4As, let's say.
Yeah.
There wasn't much intrigue come playoff. It's a lot more intriguing sometimes when people didn't play.
Oh, sure. No, I agree with that 100%. Absolutely. But they actually have to go out to Long Island to play a team. And
Oh, okay.
yeah, so like stuff like that, I didn't understand that. But again, not to ruffle any feathers of D2 officials, but hey, guess what? They have thick skin. They can handle it. But a school that I do know a little bit about, who's having a great year so far, Riverside, and a small school, not a we don't only graduates 100 kids per year, not a monster powerhouse of population wise, but Coach Armstrong putting together another really good offensive team. There's some quality kids there. Now I'll give a shout out to the offensive line up front that protects Chase, the quarterback, and gives him time to sling it around to all those receivers. But, Tavian Branch, who's a junior, getting looked at, getting offers, I think 11 or 12 offers at this point. Penn State has been there a couple times to talk to him. Great kid. He's 6'4", 290, only a junior, only going to get bigger. And they have a 6'5" tackle. Their tight end, 6'2", 230. Richie Kostoff, he's got offered by Bucknell. Real good kid. So they have some weapons. They're playing really strongly now. They're not, it's hard sometimes when you're a good team and you're going to have a stretch of maybe you're playing some teams that you might overmatch at one phase of the game. It's easy to look past them, right, Coach? You've all been in situations where you lose a game sometimes that you shouldn't lose. So I think there's some games on the schedule for them that they don't want to look past as they look towards the end of the season and their rivalry with Old Forge and Trail and then the postseason, things like that. But I think Coach Armstrong is doing a really good job, and he's got some quality kids up there.
Great. He's done a great job. He's been at it for a while up there now. We were lucky enough when I was the head coach. They came down for some 7-on-7 work in the summertime. Maybe like 3 trips they came down, and so I got to see him coach in a more quiet and personal setting. Outstanding football coach. Great offensive mind. He was really getting involved defensively at that point too, and really working him as we were throwing the ball and working the coverages. Just an excellent football coach. Great guy, and I wish him all the success in the world. And yeah, they seem to really have it going. And, I have a question because I'm not even sure, Vito. Are they, as far as district playoffs go, are they a AA school, single A school?
2A. Yep. So okay. 2A will be, I believe the 5 2A schools are Susquehanna, Redeemer, Riverside, Lakeland, and Dunmore. I think are the 5 2A, because Mid Valley, I believe, is 3A. Yes, I'm pretty sure they're the ones for District 2 playoffs. And they played Lakeland and Dunmore earlier in the year and beat them both. They have Trail, they have Old Forge. There are going to be some tough teams there. They have, and the thing about it, what Coach Armstrong has done, and I think it's what the smaller schools have to do, is open the door to his program to the athletes that play other sports. And the Rose brothers, 2 outstanding basketball players. And right now Riverside is in a run of a tremendous basketball run. They won the district title. They return everybody. They have some good kids, young kids in the program as well. And there's been an interest with those kids and some baseball players, playing football. And when you have a small school, like I said, only graduating 100, sometimes under 100 kids in a class, you have to have those kids that play other sports. You can't have kids that just play one. So like I said, the tight end plays basketball. 3 of the receivers play basketball. So he has kids out there that are athletes. You know what I mean? And his style of offense, he loves to sling it around the yard. So, he's going to open it up. And if you're not, you might think, hey, I don't want to be in there and, sticking my nose inside tackle to tackle and getting beat up. But so if you're an athlete there at Riverside, you could be on the edge. You can be out there one-on-one. Go get the ball and have some fun. So he's done a nice job of really getting some athletes to play for him.
Great. And that's what he's really effective at. He's going to poke around in a couple different formations early in a game and see where he can find some chunk plays to one of those athletes. And when the situation's right, they're going to start unloading it, and they could really pour it on. Again, great job up there.
Yeah, he's doing a nice job. Is there, as we get close to wrap it up, is there any programs that I didn't ask you about that you wanted to bring up?
Well, the first thing I want to say with this Riverside, a lot of rumor on the street is that success has to do with the principal up there. I don't know if it's true or not. I'm just saying. I don't say that, but I've heard it. People say it out loud.
Well, that's fake news, as someone would say. No, Coach Armstrong. And I will say this: that's another place that has that. It's fun. If you ever saw a game up there in the stadium, it's fun. The town is there. It's a small stadium. It's very similar to an Old Forge kind of situation, even like a Berwick back in the day. You walk around the neighborhood, everybody has signs in their yard. The kids walk down from the school to the stadium. When the neat thing about the rivalry is that they'll walk to Old Forge walks to them when they come up, and it's really cool to have that. The whole sense of the community is there, and you go to the games on Friday, and there's 60, 70, 80-year-old guys there that have been watching games forever, and they'll tell you the stories of things they saw over the decades. It's fun. It's what high school football should be about. So it's really cool for me to be, part of that atmosphere. It's fun for anybody who ever didn't get a chance to ever get there. It's a small little stadium on Main Street in Taylor, but if you like high school football, it's a place to be.
Well, real quickly here, just to mention, I know we've mentioned Dallas, but I'd like to mention the type of season the Zapaticki's having at quarterback.
Sure.
Because he leads the team in rushing. He leads Dallas in rushing right now. He leads the Wyoming Valley Conference in passing. So I haven't seen them in person, but I got to believe, I know that Coach Manello talked about having a young offensive line, and they're growing into the job. And it would appear to me that they have some more quarterback designed runs, possibly some zone reads, and maybe even into RPOs at this point, because just based on his numbers and what's going on. And that's a little bit of a stretch, but I have that feeling. And the other team to mention real quick, and another tremendous athlete that we didn't get to, Jaden Shedlock at Crestwood.
Oh yeah.
And Coach Arcangeli, and don't count them out in Division I yet in the Wyoming Valley Conference. They just played a really tough Western Wayne team. I mean, they opened up with Wyoming Area. They didn't have any favors early in their season either. Oh, and now they're going to settle in, and they run that single wing. It's unique. You don't see it. Like, you almost have to go online to look up some things about it. And, Coach Arcangeli and his staff do a great job, and they have one of the best athletes in the league. So keep an eye on Crestwood. A couple big games coming up with them. The game I like this week is Dallas at Pittston Area. I think that's the game of the week. I think you find out something about each of those teams.
Absolutely. And it's gonna be a war of attrition. I mean, it won and lost in the trenches. I mean, Coach Manello, anybody who ever had the opportunity to see him speak at a clinic, I mean, the guy, he could be up there in a suit and tie, and in 10 minutes he's dripping sweat talking about all different kind of the right footwork, on the skip pole. I mean, the guy, he's an intense dude, loves what he does, fully committed to, the 12-month throwing that iron around, and that, championships are won in the weight room. He lives and breathes football and does things the right way. And like you said about Arc as well. I mean, those guys, Crestwood always has really tough kids who again, strong kids. I think the Bibla kid's still up there. Good athletes, and Coach Myers must still be on the staff there if they're running that single wing.
I think he's remotely involved. Yeah. I don't know if he's full time, but he's around. Yeah.
Yeah. So they'll be someone to contend with. But I agree, Pittston Dallas this week would be a fun game to see, because you have, the Dallas isn't going to run around and do that kind of offense of the week kind of stuff. They are who they are. And, when they're good, they're going to beat people up, and Pittston has some firepower, with some skill guys. So it'll be a fun like chess game between those guys and see what happens. I think in any kind of situation like that, the team that makes the least amount of mistakes is going to win. So, that'll be cool to check out.
And just to mention about Coach Ark too, played for Coach Manello at Kings. Mm-hmm. So, a lot of the stuff that he's ingraining into the program that he's building up there is built around that weight room as well. I know that those guys are in there year round, and he believes in some of those same things too. So, again, Coach Ark doing a great job, and the Shedlock kid who I got to meet over the summer, what an outstanding kid. Just an outstanding young man. He's the kind of kid that you root for. Even if you're not a Crestwood fan, you root for him. He's just a great kid, All-American.
Did you mention that track? I think he's a track kid too, right? He's fast as all heck, I believe.
Well, and speaking to him, he's being recruited for football. A lot of Ivy League interest. He's that type of student as well.
Yep.
And it's 50-50 football and track and field. I think he's the 2-time district 200 meter champion. Yeah. If not, he's the 1-time 200 as a young kid. This is a heck of a look. This kid is a weight room kid. He's a book kid. He's a gym rat. Like I seriously can't say enough about him. Like, just an outstanding young man. And, look out, Crestwood. And here's another X factor in this Dallas Pittston area game. Charlie Trippi Stadium is one of the few grass fields around here anymore. And when you're a turf team and you're used to playing on turf, that's footwear. There's some different stuff going on. You show up in the wrong stuff or a little bit of rain, like you're just not used to it anymore. And as funny as that may sound, that's a great home field advantage for Coach DeLuca and the Patriots.
Well, and you Coughlin people, you have your situations with Pittston. Sometimes when there's, I won't sleep on that, but there's been situations where you guys have come out on the right side when some trickeration happens. So we could talk about that at the next installment.
Yeah, well, maybe we should just sleep on it. I'd rather not discuss some of those things.
That's great. All right. Well, listen, Coach Baranski, again, tremendous. Thanks for coming on. I'll definitely get you back in a couple weeks. We'll see how that Dallas Pittston game holds up, and actually, we'll see how all these programs are going as we get closer to the postseason. So I just want to thank Coach for being here again. This has been another episode of A Matter of Principle, a Football Friday episode. Thanks for listening.